Welcome to episode 245 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the Crowned 'em in the Desert edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host. And as always, I'm with my co-host, the iRacing Indy 500 champion, computer genius, a gentleman and a scholar. His name is Josh Fine. What's going on, man?
Hey, I'm doing great, Phil. Of course, great to be back on the show and ready to talk about Phoenix and all that happened and how we got to all three of these championships here. But I guess, yeah, sad to see another NASCAR season end. But hey, that means that it's right around the corner.
Yeah, we're 80 days away from the clash at Bowman Gray Stadium. First time NASCAR Premier Series will be at Bowman Gray since 70-something. Be remiss talking about Bowman Gray. It was a site of Bobby Allison, what ends up being his 85th win, because it took years, decades for them to give him credit for it. His passing last week was felt across the whole industry. And our condolences go out to the Allison family and his extended relatives. The patriarch of one of the great families in NASCAR, and talk about NASCAR in general and what it's built on, what it had been built on over the years, and it was built on families. Think about, obviously for you, Josh, Dale Jr., the Earnhardts, 3 generations there, Allisons, 2 generations, but they meant so much. Bobby gave so much to this sport. In the end, he lost 2 sons, one of them in a racing accident, and one, suffered a lot to go and ply his trade and be one of the best drivers in this sport in his time. And in the end, Bobby Allison now, after a long battle with illness, gets to be back with his wife, Judy, and with his boys, and gets to join some of his other friends up there, back in a race car again. So that's it's a sad loss, but I think it probably is, at that point in his life where he was at, I think being alive to be able to get that 85th win, to get that credit and to go and move himself ahead of some of them other fellow legends, was one of those last things he held out for. Other people who held out for other things that didn't work out so well for them, but won't get into that. We'll talk about his number. He drove the number 22, Bobby Allison, when he won his championship. One of the few numbers he drove and he won in over his illustrious career. And Joey Logano has driven the 22 car since 2013. And in the last 12 years, he's went from being someone who was a cast-off at Joe Gibbs Racing, thrown out the side like he had no talent, even though he was one of the more talented kids coming into the sport in a long time, and now has become a 3-time Cup Series champion. He's only the 10th driver in the history of NASCAR's top series to have 3 or more championships, joining Tony Stewart. And it's interesting, all the parallels there. We're going from Bobby Allison and the Allison family and to Tony Stewart, because they both drove the 20 car, him and Logano, till now, and then Penske, and Logano being a 3-time champion. Same weekend that Stewart Haas Racing closes its doors. A lot going on there. We'll get into the race at Phoenix on Sunday. I think one of the only real interesting things that took place was the pace car crashing. That was basically the majority of the entertainment, because Christopher Bell dominated and Logano was up there all day. They basically were the class of the field. So we'll get into the Cup race, the season finale for this year. In Xfinity, after many years of trying, Justin Allgaier is finally a champion. Probably given assist to his pit crew and some of his other teammates at Junior Motorsports. Buckshot Jones' backup car, since that's what he had to drive to the championship after crashing 4 minutes into practice because Brennan Poole had, I think, a gear or something go right at the start of practice, oiled down the entire track, and destroyed a bunch of race cars. That's always an awesome thing that you want to have in a championship race. But it didn't, in the end, screw up Justin Allgaier, even though Justin Allgaier did his usual thing, which is try to do a Denny Hamlin and choke, which he sped on pit road. He jumped he did a restart violation, and somehow or another his car was so goddamn fast. It was faster than Xfinity 10G, and he was able to get all the way back up to the front by the end of the race. Used Hank Hill as a pick and passed Cold Custard in the last race for Stuart Haas, of course, as I said earlier. Stuart Haas ended up with the victory with Riley Herbst, who is waiting with bated breath on whether he'll be a Cup driver next year for 23XI. But more than likely leaves the Xfinity Series as a winner and a career year for him, a career-defining year for him, and that now he's going to be a Cup driver next year. So something to say about that. And Custer is going to go back to the Cup Series as well. In the trucks, a lot of the season was about Corey Heim and Christian Eckes. But in the end, the super late model standout, the long-time employee at Doorsport Racing and perennial contender, Ty Majeski, becomes a Truck Series champion, continuing the ThorSport trend over recent years, where it doesn't really matter as long as you're a ThorSport truck, you seem to always find a way there. Of course, Matt Crafton, multiple championships, even without winning a race. You had Ben Rhodes getting shit-faced twice after championships. Now you have Ty Majeski, who's won virtually every super late model race you can win. Wisconsin short track guy of the ilk of, trying to be a new age like Dick Trickle. And coming from the Midwest area where you've had Matt Kenseth in more recent times, but then you've had Rusty Wallace and Mark Martin and Alan Kawicki, and you have somebody who had to grind his way into the NASCAR Main 3 Series. And I brought this up to my mom, actually, that there was a car way back when, or going back 6 years ago. It was the 60 car for Roush Racing, and it in the Busch Series, Xfinity Series now, and it was like nationwide, or no, I think it might have been Xfinity. I think it was nationwide back then, whatever it was. And you had Ty Majeski, Chase Briscoe, and Austin Cindric. And I think they might have set a record for wrecks in a season between the three of them. And these were all like the top 3 Ford prospects. And they destroyed so much equipment, it was almost like Jeff Gordon's early days. And to think where all 3 of these guys are. In the case of Briscoe, he's the only one that doesn't have a championship, but he's been Rookie of the Year in all 3 major series. He's now going to Gibbs to take over from Martin Truex. He won the Southern 500 and beat Kyle Busch earlier this fall. Gumby Cindric's won 2 Cup races. He's won the Daytona 500. He's an Xfinity champion, probably should be a two-time Xfinity champion. And then now Ty Majeski, Truck Series winner, and now Truck Series champion. So from those humble beginnings, all three of those guys have been able to move forward and actually have a career. So we'll get into all three of those races. We'll talk about whether Phoenix should be where the finale is. If not, where should it be? What should the playoff format be? Considering the guy who, in overall points, in total points, was like 15th in points, became the champion. And we'll get into that. We'll talk about NFL Week 10. Chicago fired their offensive coordinator. I figure one of our teams probably should have fired their offensive coordinator. Well, actually, only one of us actually has an offensive coordinator. The other one's the head coach. So you can't fire the head coach, even though he deserves to be fired some days. And they tried to spit the bit last week, too, against Tampa Bay. But we got all that, and we got fantasy football as well. Last few weeks of the regular season, we have an extra week before the trade deadline, so we'll talk more about that next week. In terms of the roundup, very short. MotoGP, Moto2, they finished their season in Barcelona because of the floods in Valencia, all the bad weather and stuff going on there. Supercars will be finishing at Adelaide on the street track there, harkening back to the old Australian Grand Prix Formula One race finale. And then the World Finals at Pomona for the NHRA. Their season finale. 2 championships basically locked. 2 championships still to race for. Get into that. Niels Wittich, the F1 chief, like technical director or chief steward, chief steward, quit, but then it's come out that he got fired. Amongst a lot of news going on, a lot of controversy going on in Formula One these days. With we'll be previewing Las Vegas next week, but prior to that, a lot going on in the world of Formula One racing. Driver news, power unit, supplier news, etc., etc. Josh will let us know what's going on in the world of iRacing gaming in the sim segment, and then we will call it. But first, we will talk about the Cup Series finale at Phoenix. Mention that there was basically 2 guys that led the entire race. 250 of the race's 312 laps were led by Christopher Bell and the eventual winner, Joey Logano. Logano won stage 1 after starting second. Defending series champion and teammate Ryan Blaney won stage 2, led 12 laps, interestingly enough. William Byron, who got in because Christopher Bell got penalized, finished 3rd. Kyle Larson 4th. Bell 5th. Tyler Reddick 6th. Darrell Wallace Jr., with a substitute crew chief, finished 7th after starting 29th. William Clyde Elliott II, Christopher Buescher, and then Nacho Libre from 34th to 10th. Dennis Hamlin in the last race for FedEx, which is crazy to think how many years. It's like an 18 or 19-year partnership that ended. And that's probably the last of the major, basically every race sponsors that had existed in NASCAR. That might be it. The way that NASCAR's business model is, FedEx might be the last one that we ever have that will be like the every race sponsor. And they have decided to call it quits. So it's a iconic brand with driver gone. So unfortunate, sad to see that go. Martin Truex qualified on pole, was up front after the first stage, and then slowly fell back for a second week in a row to finish 17th in his final race of his full-time Cup career. And other guys you can talk about. Keebler Gibbs wrecked on lap 1, and so that was a brutal end to his season. Ryan Preece finished 37th. Was a non-factor all weekend. Chase Briscoe dropped anchor early on in the race. Started up relatively up front and then just fell back and ended up 29th. Josh Berry was nowhere the whole entire weekend and finished 24th. The only one of the Stewart-Haas cars that actually ran decent was Gagson with Nitro Circus on the car, finished 12th. You got some other guys in here, in terms of Harrison Burton in his last Cup race for a while, finished 16th. Kyle Busch's win streak is over. Finished 21st on Sunday. Daniel Hemrick is out of the Cup Series again and probably forever. Finished 23rd. Derek Kraus, probably the last time we'll see him in a Cup car for a long time. 25th. Jimmy Johnson ran a cool-looking paint scheme, but the car was dog slow. He'll run limited races again next year. And Michael McDowell's last race for Front Row Motorsports ended with him being 31st. It's interesting, he's from Arizona, but he's never really ran well at Phoenix International Raceway, so interesting. And with that, Richard, in what might be his last Cup race for a while, if things are landing the way it seems like they may, finishes 33rd. Getting to punch Kyle Busch in the face will be one of the highlights of Ricky Stenhouse's career, no matter what. He did win Daytona, so I guess, or Talladega. Yeah, he won at Talladega, right? Yeah, so he did get another win, but we don't know what's going to happen. That Preece, of course, it sounds like will be joining RFK Racing, but we'll find out in the next couple of weeks with Kroger sponsorship, so see about that. Zane Smith, we don't know what's going to happen with him. He's one of a few people that I think are in limbo because of the whole FRM 2311 lawsuit. I think RFK might be getting, they said, from one of these other YouTubers, they said that might be getting the charter from Rick Ware, which would be quite a get for him. Yet another great business move in that he's able to sell one of his charters to a big-time team. He loses his driver that they said that they were building around, but somehow or another is going to go and sell one of the charters and make out like a bandit again. So there's that. So a lot of things going on here, but Joey Logano set this all up first with Alex Bowman getting DQ'd out of the round of 8 after he had made it. Gets in to the round of 8, promptly goes and uses fuel mileage at Las Vegas to earn his way into and win to earn his way into the Final Four, and then does what he usually does when he gets this opportunity, gets the job done and becomes a 3-time series champion. Um, 36 Cup wins, 3 championships, 1 Daytona. He's won I think he's won the 600. In terms of the big races, he hasn't won Indy yet. Other than that, I mean, he's won Talladega, he's won at some of these other big races. So, I mean, 36 wins, 3 championships, guaranteed Hall of Famer, Daytona 500, guaranteed Hall of Famer, and he's still got a long time to go. Definitely wasn't as pretty or as consistent or his best for periods this year. He wasn't the best Penske car this year. Blaney was. But in the end, there's something to be said about the guy who was once known as sliced bread, Joey Logano, when he needs to be clutch, seems to be clutch. And the stats show it after Sunday, Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, Joey Logano, who most of this year was not that great. And you talk about sliced bread, and there's another nickname that he doesn't really like, but has sort of embraced, but Slowy Logano there, which was kind of true to form this year, 17th place average finish, which is pretty slow. But of course, this format doesn't reward consistency. It rewards being good in clutch moments here, and that's what we've seen, ever since we've gone to the system, and it was very true, especially this year. And you talk about the getting lucky, of course, at the Roval. I mean, he got extremely lucky this year because, I mean, it really, we have to go all the way back to Nashville when Austin Cindric just spun out of nowhere, racing for like 17th or something, and going out there and spinning out and starting that whole series of cautions that led to 7x overtime and led to Joey Logano saving a gazillion amount of gas to win that race and lock himself in. So, and of course, he won Atlanta, which, another track that's very random in its result, but which, I mean, I guess at least he won that one, I guess, more legitimately than Nashville. But I mean, if you really want to go back all the way to that point when the season changed for him and qualified him in, and then that's where you get the feeling like, oh man, he hasn't not had a great season up to that point, but now he's locked in and could be a threat for the championship. And look, we talked about it back then. Now look where we are right now, talking about him being a 3-time champion here. So I mean, of course, he won at Las Vegas by fuel mileage as well, which, I mean, we got to really like study the fuel mileage system that Penske has, because they've really, I mean, other than Blaney running out of gas at Gateway, I mean, they've been pretty good on the fuel mileage races this year. So that's one thing to analyze there. But yeah, of course, Logano, ran. I mean, this race alone ran up front, for most of it, qualified on second on the pole, was up there, for most of it. Of course, Chris Bell, led the majority of the laps here. I think, up until the last caution, I think was probably, the favorite here, but, Logano, of course, took the lead afterwards. And then from there, it was his race to lose. And for Blaney, of course, he qualified 17th, so he had a really good car to come from 17th to come up to battle for the win there. But of course, lost ground on the final restart. Got raced pretty hard, which that's fair enough. I think raced pretty hard by Larson and other people, and then having to go fight William Byron there to get around for third, and then he was closing in on Logano, but just never could get enough of a run to get around him. Which, of course, this car, very hard, especially this track, very hard to pass. So, yeah, Logano, of course, winning this race. And I guess the other guys in this championship as well. I mean, this was basically the two Penske cars battling for the championship, which, interesting dynamic there with the two team cars racing each other for the championship versus, William Byron there, who didn't really have enough pace to keep up with Logano or Blaney, and then Reddick, who outside of a couple of moves on a restart here or there, did not really have the same pace as all the rest of the playoff cars there. So yeah, for him, I mean, it's kind of a disappointing end after being the regular season champion. So that's unfortunate that he wasn't able to compete, because he didn't even lead laps at all compared to the other three drivers who all led at least 10 laps and at least 12 laps for Blaney there. So yeah, mostly, I mean, not really that entertaining. You really had to go to the strategy for this to see how the strategy would play out, and we were kind of seeing it play out. But then you'd have a couple of cautions here and there that had stuff happen. Of course, the 71, the only other on track incident besides the 54 there. So that one kind of changed things around and kind of shortened it to where it was basically going to be a green flag run for the rest of the way for that. So that led to kind of killed the strategy, I guess, for anything other than getting tires on the last stop, and then going out and attempting to beat each other, which that was what Logano was able to do. So yeah, the only thing that was even remotely entertaining, of course, was the pace car incident, which for NASCAR, pretty rare that this happens. But like we were talking about offline, those guys drive every week. It's not like the celebrity guy who's only there for the start. These guys do it every week, and kind of talked about the IndyCar incident from 2018, which of course that was the GM of Chevrolet, or the GM of GM, Mark Roos, who wrecked that one. I think that was what we were talking about. And then I remember one year where the pace car caught fire at the Bud shootout in Daytona, which I saw in person. But those things are rare, but pretty entertaining. And seeing the memes out of that, it was pretty funny. So yeah, other than that, I mean, it was a typical Gen 7, I guess at this point, next gen Phoenix race, where it was basically a struggle up front, and seeing if anybody had pace, seeing Blaney try to pass, but unable to because he ran out of time, and because the way the aero blocking works these days.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. I was hoping Blaney could go and win back to back. At the end of the day, as long as Byron didn't win, I was going to be happy about it. I knew they weren't going to really give Reddick a chance if he actually had one, but they didn't have a good car for him. It seemed like Bubba had a better car. If he had had a decent qualifying run, he might have been up there battling for a win. But in terms of Logano putting himself into this rarefied air, 10 drivers, he's one of 10 drivers to have 3 or more championships. And I mean, now the next goal is to get to 40 wins. I mean, that's because that's around, you got Mark Martin, you have Bill Elliott in that realm. Once you get into the 40 to 50 win plateau, you have Tony Stewart there. So, I mean, you got some really good drivers, and he's got a long time to go. I mean, I guess at this point, it's really a case of the one sponsor that seems to be doing a majority of the season. I was talking about Denny Hamlin with FedEx. I think Shell Pennzoil might be that last one. I mean, it's as much to do with the business-to-business partnership that Penske has with all of his dealerships and crap with Shell and Pennzoil. But they figured out this format. They figured out a way. 2 years in a row, Blaney's won at Martinsville when he's needed to. Joey Logano has won at Vegas twice in the last 3 years to go and make it in. He's won at Homestead to win a championship. He's won this race twice to win his championship. So in the end, the notion that Penske knows how to work this format is there. And I mean, he doesn't hire just anybody, obviously, or he hasn't recently. The fact is he has two of the best drivers in the sport. Ford, after what has been a pretty mediocre year for a good amount of it, recovered in the last, I guess, few months of the season. That last third of the season, you had Briscoe's win, you had Chris Buescher's win at Watkins Glen, you had Blaney winning, you have Logano winning. I mean, all those guys win for Ford. You had McDowell lead the whole entire series in poles after never winning a pole his whole entire fucking career, and then he wins like 6 or something this year. It wasn't a year for Ford. It was definitely a year for Chevy. They won the manufacturer's title, but in the grand scheme of things, I mean, Larson won 6 races, but Joey Logano won 4. And I mean, people want to go and nitpick how he won those races. I mean, Josh mentioned Nashville, where Logano made Scott Dixon and Jesus level fuel at Nashville. You talk about Atlanta, which is a total crapshoot, but he won there. It's a super speedway race, whatever now. Vegas, fuel mileage when Christopher Bell dominated the race. But in this case, if you want to talk about Logano's year, when was the best race he had all year? He saved it for race 36 when he needed it the most. That's what this format really asks for. They want to have those Game 7 moments, and fundamentally NASCAR does not, as much as they think they compete with other sports, they don't. The ratings prove that. The ratings have gone down for a decade plus to prove that. The reality is 2011, that season, that playoff, the chase, whatever, with Tony Stewart, that was some of his greatest work. And that was the crowning achievement of his NASCAR career. That was basically the NASCAR playoff in the best way possible. Tony Stewart, who wasn't uber consistent, winning 5 out of 10 races, including 3 out of the last 4, or 3 out of the last 5, or whatever the hell, including the last race to win on a tiebreaker over Carl Edwards, who had, I think, a 9th place average finish for the whole entire year, or something crazy like that, and won one race like Matt Kenseth did in 2003, but it wasn't enough. In this year, Larson wins 6 races, doesn't even make the final 4. He misses one race, people will be like, oh, because he missed the one race. It's like, no. Kyle Larson, for as great as he may be, made too many mistakes when he didn't win, crashed his car, and finished in the mid to low 30s. At some point, you pay the price for those bad finishes. And that's why he wasn't there. I mean, Bowman got screwed, so that ended up helping Logano. You had Bell get screwed out of that, so that helped William Byron, but that also helped Logano. Because in the end, Christopher Bell was the only other car that had speed, real speed. It was 3 guys, like Josh mentioned. It's Logano, Blaney, Bell. After that, name me anybody that flirted with the front. Nobody did, other than the pace car, which hit sand barrels. That's it. There was nobody else. So you had a pissed off Christopher Bell who had already gotten fucked at Vegas They didn't win that race, and that ended up probably costing the chance of the championship. Yeah, fucked at Martinsville, and because of Hendrick and Chevy manipulation, and then late race not having, I guess, a short run car or whatever, ends up losing out, and he's gonna wonder. I think if there's anybody, I mean, Larson probably won't be happy, but he's also Kyle Larson. I don't think he really gives a fuck. I know Hendrick wanted it in the 40th year, but they'll get back to it next year, and I think all their cars are going to be fine. In terms of Christopher Bell, though, he's really going to be left wondering. The way that this season went, I mean, Truex was generally a non-factor the majority of the year. Hamlin disappeared basically when the lawsuit came out. The lawsuit came out and it coincided with him going in the tank, and he basically had a nondescript playoff. Keebler Gibbs was nowhere, made the playoff, but was not really much of anything. But if you listen to Steve Letarte, he's going to have a career year next year because he's going to get to 100 Cup starts or whatever. So we'll see what happens with that. Bell's a leader of this team this year. Hamlin is based on seniority, but Bell is the guy. Bell is the one that you need to get behind if you want to win a championship. If Toyota is thinking about who can get them a championship, it's Bell and it's Reddick. It's a lost opportunity for Christopher Bell here. We don't know what's going to happen next year in terms of development and whatnot. Bringing in Chase Briscoe should help the organization. They'll get a different set of eyes. They'll get a different perspective coming into the Toyota camp. They'll have a little bit more data coming in. But, I mean, I guess the one question, there's two questions. Like we mentioned in the open, what should the playoff format be, and what tracks should host the finale? I think we've basically hashed out that Phoenix sucks. Phoenix as a town or whatever, Avondale, Arizona, guess is a perfectly fine town. They have a bar outside of the racetrack, and Junior was very happy about that. He probably drank the whole place closed, running around with the flag. But, they put bowling out. I think that's the same bar or whatever setup as where they had the bowling alley earlier this year for that whole All-Star event. But a bowling alley and moving some grandstands around and putting the start-finish line in a weird place does not make a good track. They ruined Phoenix. I'm not saying that it was the most amazing track for NASCAR racing, but I've watched old Phoenix races where passing was possible and you could move around the racetrack and it didn't seem contrived. So they fucked it up. And that's typical NASCAR, whether it's, ISC or SMI. You have Homestead Miami Speedway, which put on a great, race there a few weeks ago. Vegas, of course. Kansas, has become that pseudo, like the ideal track for this car. But there's a lot of weather-related issues that you'd have, which would be similar to what happened at Atlanta for years, where it'd be super cold, but go down there for the finale for many, many years, and that's how it was. I mean, there's those tracks. I know Texas is done. They've basically killed Texas Motor Speedway, and that's fine because it's a dump. But when you consider temperatures and you consider the time of year in its older format and older configurations, that might have been a good spot. But I also think NASCAR and the Franz family do not want to give the finale to an SMI track, which is stupid because you're losing out on the Las Vegas opportunity by doing that. To me, it should be either Homestead or Vegas. That's it. I don't care about Phoenix. Put it back to the next to last race. Put it as a elimination race. In the round 8, whatever. Just don't have it as a final race after 2025 for the sake of this series and for NASCAR. It's a terrible racetrack. They've ruined it. They need to do more work to it to actually make it worthwhile. If they really wanted to, they need to do more. It's just they've made it into a dump. Other than those 2 tracks, they're a lot logistically, temperature wise, I don't think it makes a lot of sense. And then when it comes to the playoff, it should go back to a 10 race playoff, and you want to have 16 cars, more than half or about half the chartered cars, whatever, fine, if that floats your boat. Personally, I would say 12 drivers. If you win, okay, and if there's more than 12 drivers, then it's on points. It's either you have to win more races or you have to earn more points at that juncture. So that would be more intriguing. You'd have guys that are trying to make it in that need to make it in with a win, or you'd have a bunch of guys that have 1 win that need to win again to have a chance at making the playoff. You wouldn't have the bald spot Dylan, Harrison Burton shit going on. You wouldn't have Joey Logano essentially backdooring his way, same as Briscoe and Cindric did. So I just named 5 guys there that made the playoff. But okay, so 12 drivers, 10. You have the 10 race deal. You eliminate 8 drivers after the first 3 races. So you basically cut the field right in half. Then you have another 3 races to eliminate down to 4, and you give the final 4 races of the season. You have a 4-race championship. No, at that point you just do the reset with their playoff points, and then straight up, whatever you do, whoever scores the most points in the next 4 weeks, however you have to do it, you are the champion. You get 4 races to do it. That would build up to a crescendo at whatever track you want to have it at. And personally, that would be fine by me. I think that would be a lot more worthwhile. But I'll throw it over to you, Josh. I mean, in terms of, we know Phoenix. We've hashed it out for years. It's a terrible track. Based on the Gluck poll, it's one of the worst tracks we go to in terms of good races, because there's not really a such thing unless your driver wins. In the grand scheme of things, I know for you, locally, or in terms of location, Homestead, of course, isn't that far away, so you're relatively able to get there. But it's also a good racetrack. It hasn't been updated in a long, long time, so now ISC actually has to put some money into it. Ford had the Ford sponsorship for years, which was part of what made them the finale forever. Now they don't even have sponsor for the finale cup race anymore, which is stupid. But yeah, what do you think? What tracks should host a finale? And what do you think would be the ideal format for the playoffs going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the ideal playoff format is where NASCAR has a committee similar to college football select the playoff field, a 12 driver playoff field. And, you know, we have the committee just select who's the 12 best drivers and go from there, and then just have 3 rounds, or, yeah, 3 rounds, 3 races each. So 9 races. No, I don't actually believe that. I don't think there should be a committee. I just think that would be kind of wild, because I don't think it'd basically be as good as the you know, winning in format. It wouldn't be any better than that, but um yeah, we could just like, college football is having this debate of who should be in the playoffs. Like, okay, like let's debate it. Let's see, does Austin Dillon deserve a playoff spot over Bubba Wallace? Yeah, like, whose body of work over the entire season is worth more to be in the playoffs? And I don't know. I think maybe Bubba Wallace would be in that scenario. Maybe that would work, all things considered. But no, I mean, I think it should just be the uh, points after, just straight up points. Yeah, after the first 26 or 27 races. Um, so, you just go by that, and then every 3 races you cut off a portion of the field, so every 4 drivers. But then the last round is 3 races, so the final four, among them, go out and battle it out on points, and then no more. No more winning in, I think, at all. I mean, I know Supercars, they're doing winning in only on the playoff round, not winning in for the regular season. So I guess there's some balance there, and brings kind of the attention to the rounds themselves, um, in terms of that. But I think it just make it points, just straight up, regardless. Because then, if it's winning in for the playoff rounds, then I guess the first 2 rounds are winning in, but then the last one, you'd have to figure it out how to balance that out over 3 races. But um, yeah, I think it should just be like something where it's points straight up, and then every 3 races you cut some portion of the field, 4 cars, and then the last one, you just go, and whoever finishes on points on top is the winner, of course. Um, I mean, I think you might make it interesting with stage points. So stage points would still be relevant in the final round, because now it isn't, because they just want the winner to straight up, or whoever's the highest of the final four, to be the champion, um, and everything. So you have that, and I mean, I think you have to balance it out by having wins count at a far greater amount than what they do. So it might help with the winning in type, or I guess kind of not replace winning in or get rid of it, but um, maybe have the points pay significantly more than what they do for winning. Because I mean, right now, I mean, it is more, obviously, but it really only counts if you maximize with the stage points for the first 2 stages, and then the final one, and then you win the race. That's really the only way you can get maximum points. But if the bonus for winning is so great that um, it can help you make the next round, or anything like that, then that I might be open to that. And then probably, bonus points, bring back bonus points for leading a lap, or leading a set of laps. I think maybe leading a lap, right? Like, oh, like a guy that's like in 30th on a pit cycle leading a lap. I don't know if that deserves the bonus points, but say if you stick around for like 10 laps, if you lead 10 laps, then maybe that would qualify as a bonus point for leading laps. And then, of course, still have the most laps leader bonus there as well if you lead the most laps in the race. So points amounts, to be determined. But yeah, just straight up points championship there, with kind of a mix of having the elimination rounds, but then also having the old, pre 2014 chase where it's the 10 races that made up the whole thing. So yeah, that's the format for me. That's how I would go about it, to try to balance things out there. Because this one currently, like I said earlier, you rely on clutch moments to win. You have guys that know how to game the system, like Penske. They know how to game it. I wouldn't say it's gaming the system. I mean, like, people are comparing it like, oh, like, is it Jimmy Johnson, like how they were able to game it? And I mean, I guess they were able to game it too, but they still had the length of the season and the length of the chase to play out for them. So they still had to be quite good. And there was only, I think, really the one that he was like not that good was the last one that he won for number 7, which that was in the playoff elimination round era. So, the other ones that he won, I think he was definitely a lot more dominant and a lot more consistent. Where Joey Logano in this one definitely really, really took, gaming the system to another level there with, getting a win in the regular season. And then, when it came to being, eliminated, of course, without the penalty there, when it came to be, you know, the final round before the Phoenix, they were able to go out and get that win. And Penske has figured this kind of out where they don't really necessarily have to be fast every week. They just need to figure out the tracks that they're good at and be good at those, because then as long as Phoenix is the final one, they'll be good for the championship there. So now all the other teams have to figure something out. But that does bring us to, okay, well, where should the finale be? Which, I mean, to me, I guess, if we're going to have a finale be the championship track, then I think it should be at Homestead, like you said, because I think that's the best track for deciding this. I think, Miami is certainly a better area to have it in. You have Phoenix, which is out in the desert, and I mean, it's not bad, I guess, weather-wise, but yeah, the track's not good. Other tracks that could do it, I mean, maybe, yeah, Homestead. Charlotte, could just have the final race of the year be at Charlotte to decide the championship there, which that's another good next gen track. Maybe, or it could have it at Martinsville, which of course isn't really that good right now in terms of next gen, but with the intensity that happens at Martinsville, it's certainly better than at Phoenix. So, you can make an argument for Martinsville being the championship race there. You could go to Atlanta and throw back to, what it was in the 90s, of course, but still the plate racing element there. But, you can make the argument that as the track ages, it won't be quite as plate racy anymore, but, that could be an option in the future, and throw it back to what they did, before they moved it to Homestead for the final race. So, yeah, there's a lot of, tracks that I feel like are more deserving of a finale race than Phoenix. But yeah, they definitely ruined it for the racing. I mean, I felt like the racing there was like okay in the Gen 6 era, but for whatever reason now that they've flipped the front stretch around to the dog leg, I don't know why I feel like it kind of changed the approach of that track. So because I feel like, if you're gonna have like a dramatic finale, definitely think that, taking the dog leg and sending it into turn 3 like Ryan Newman did in 2014, I think that's kind of a way you'd want to do it, which, obviously now can't do it, but it would open more dramatic opportunities there going into the final lap onto the front straight there. But yeah, I mean, definitely I think Homestead should just be the track to end the season at, for sure.
Yeah, you made some good points about the bonus points there. Putting 1 bonus point for leading a lap. Granted, if people stayed out like in the old days, people used to do that for 5 bonus points in the old Latford format, but it didn't really hurt anybody or hurt anything. 1 point in this format, the way the point system is it really gonna do anything? I don't know, but if you gave 5 bonus points for leading the most laps, it would probably put an emphasis on leading more, which then in turn would put an emphasis on winning more. I would also say that, like you're talking about the points, probably bumping up the points gap between just the base amount of points for a win, bumping that up 5-10 points, something like that, also would help. And then if you have somebody like Kyle Larson win that many races, then it would put an emphasis on winning to the point where, even though he's wildly inconsistent, he's going out there and winning races. It all balances itself out. I mean, it's something NASCAR, they don't seem to understand. And I mean, I think we've talked about it ad nauseum when Joe's been on here and other people have been on here. I look back and I know why they have this format. It's basically because they want to force feed what happened in 2011 organically. But you need to have the characters. Number one, you need to have a car that's raceable. And in that day and age, that car was really good on the cookie cutter tracks, but it also was good on short tracks. It was also it was basically what do you call, like a the car was basically a base model car. They just had stickers on it. Yes, there was the aero and other stuff, and engines were different because of the manufacturers, but basically the car tomorrow, the Gen 5, was the same car for everybody. Now you have parity in terms of aerodynamics and the like, and there's a need that they need to. There's plenty of things that NASCAR needs to fix, but this is one that they could remedy relatively easily if they really weren't involved in, all the back end deals that they're getting to line their pockets. But I mean, I guess lining pockets and going and doing backroom deals and everybody going and making out like bandits, and the people that actually care and love the sport getting fucked sounds like a common theme these days. Yeah, so we'll move forward. Did a lot on there. The Xfinity Series championship race. Mentioned the end of the race. Riley Herbst dominated, led 167 of the race's 213 laps. Of course, that means they went into multiple green, white checkers. 2 to be exact. Or 1, I guess. Yeah, 1 2 green, white checkers. He in his last race for Stewart Haas, Tony was there, so it was cool to see that second year in a row there with that. Justin Allgaier from 37th to 2nd and wins a championship. Eric Almirola 38th. He also wrecked in that practice crash, or in that practice incident, right behind Justin Allgaier. 38th to 3rd. Connor Zilic 21st to 4th. Just watch out for that guy. That's it. Just watch out for him, and Carson Kvapil. You want to talk about a rookie battle next year? Literally, the rookie battles inside that shop, and one of those two guys not only could go out and will win Rookie of the Year, one of those two guys could make the Final Four. I'm going out on a limb here a year ahead of time. One of those two guys could be in the Final Four, because I mean that's ridiculous. I mean, how many races Connor Zilich driven in an Xfinity car, and he's finishing top 5 in a championship race when he barely has any experience? What the hell is going to happen when he gets to do this every week? Absolutely insane. I think I need to get on that bandwagon. I think I was on his bandwagon after Watkins Glen anyway, but and also because he drove for Shea Holbrook's MX5 team. But the fact is, I'm probably jumping on this so I can get in on the Dale merchandise and all the other stuff with the 88 and all that crap. But yeah, Chandler Smith in probably his last race finished 5th. Jesse Love wins Rookie of the Year, finishes 6th. Sheldon Creed started on the outside pole, led 20 laps, finished 7th, ahead of the car he's going to be driving next year, the 00. Cole Custer, in his last Xfinity race for the foreseeable future, finished 8th in his attempt to win a second consecutive Xfinity title. AJ Allmendinger was nowhere the whole entire day, but ended up 9th. And Hank Hill finished 10th. He had run out of tires at that point. Once all them yellows came out, and was out on old tires or on scuffs and couldn't hold his line. Sam Mayer in his last race for Junior Motorsports, 11th. SVG in his last full-time Xfinity race, 12th. Daddy's Money Sawalich qualified on pole, but ended up 13th. Kligerman 14th. And Sammy Smith 15th there. So, yeah, I mean, we had Stephen Parsons get destroyed by Anthony Alfredo, and he gets fined $25,000. It used to be funny to see how much they made in the race. They don't bother to show that anymore, because you could see how much was their purse money, and they get like 10 or 15%, and you're basically paying your whole entire purse money that you got in a fine. But Justin Allgaier did everything in his power, Josh, to try and lose this championship like he has done many times before. And it was almost like when he won his ARCA title way back in 2008. And when Scott Speed and O. Richard wrecked each other at Toledo, out of the opportunity, and then he went out there, won the race, and won the championship. In this case, he was trying to do what O. Richard and Scott Speed did to each other, to himself, got away from it somehow or another because of how great of a car they put together, and Jim Pullman and company gave him a ride that got Justin Allgaier in his 14th season in Xfinity, and his 7th Final Four, finally gets that elusive Xfinity championship. And that was the feel-good story of the weekend. That was the positive one. You had Dale Jr. getting shit-faced on Budweiser and running around with a flag, and if it weren't for him being married, I think he probably would have been running around like Ricky Bobby in his underwear around Phoenix Raceway. That's how happy he was. But Junior Motorsports comes through, gets the championship on Saturday, and had to fight for it, though, with Cole Custer there late in that race to try and get the job done. But Allgaier did it there.
Yeah, Allgaier, of course. I mean, he had probably one of the more eventful championship races that you could ever have. In this format. I mean, first of all, started off the weekend in a practice crash, and then stayed up late to help the teammate get their car prepped for race day, and with Brandon Jones, who was also in a backup car there. So you had that, and then the penalties that he had the penalty for changing lanes before the restart. And I thought when that happened, I honestly thought that, okay, well, he's finished. But then he was able to get back onto the lead lap, and he got saved. And then from there, he was just about him trying to get to Cole Custer, which thought Cole Custer might be a little bit too far away, but then lap traffic kind of brought him back into it. The 88, the two were racing Cole Custer pretty hard, which for Chevys, given that how Chevys were racing at Martinsville in the Cup race, it's like, oh, this looks a little suspicious here. But I mean, I think they're honestly just racing hard and racing Cole Custer there, and then Allgaier was able to get around Cole Custer. It seemed like Cole Custer started to fade a lot on that last run of green flag racing there, and then caution comes out, and it's like, oh well, this is the Xfinity Series in 2024. What better way to end the year than how we've ended most of the races here, by a green white checkered finish? And that's how it turned out there. Of course, 31 crashes in the middle of it, and that brings out another overtime restart. And then Allgaier is able to get the lead there, actually, but then drive away. But then Riley Herbst, who out of nowhere kind of is able to get to Allgaier there before the finish, and then pass him there for the win. Which, I mean, I think any other race try to go for the win there, but of course, given what was at risk there, had to let him go and think in the bigger picture there in the last corner. So Allgaier wins the championship finally. I mean, it's been a long time coming for him, several years in the Xfinity Series. It's different because he's actually a guy that's probably a lifer in the Xfinity Series. A lot of these guys that win the championship end up going on to the Cup Series eventually. And for Junior Motorsports especially, clearly, otherwise a developmental team, but you have a couple of guys who are likely to be Xfinity mainstays, and Allgaier and Brandon Jones. But Allgaier, after so many years of being in the Final Four and figuring out a choke away, and of course this one, opportunities there for him to choke it away with that penalty, and then of course the final pit stop slow as well, not ideal there for him and for all of that. But now to finally win has to be so rewarding for him and his team, after all that they have been through in the last several years in this playoff format era, where they had a chance but couldn't get it done. But now they get it done, and they get the boss man the flag there. And this is actually the first owners championship for Junior Motorsports, actually, given how in previous years that they had won the title, the owners championship was won by a different car because it had the prominence of Cup teams putting in their all-star car, which not as prominent anymore, but the years that they had won it, it certainly was. So certainly a factor there and how that all has played out. But Junior's like, oh, I don't care about the owners championship. Well, he actually did win the owners championship there. So that's a good deal for Junior Motorsports there. But I mean, Austin Hill, last pit stop, 2 tires, a huge gamble there, but probably not the right idea, considering how, especially in this series, tires actually do matter, and not the right move there. Cole Custer, of course, stuck behind him on the last restart, and that opened the door for Justin Allgaier to cut to the middle and take the lead there, which probably wouldn't have worked for Cole Custer for him to do that, but Allgaier was able to make it work. Of course, had their race played out under green, probably wouldn't have seen him win this title because of how Allgaier was on pace there at the very end before the final caution and regulation there. But Custer had an opportunity in the first stage or the first restart, but of course stuck behind Hill there. And then Allmendinger just not on the same level as Allgaier or Custer there, or even Hill. But Allgaier or Allmendinger, of course, going up the Cup Series, would have liked to see him get a Xfinity Series title before going back into the Cup car for Kaulig. But I mean, he had a pretty decent season as well, so nothing to be ashamed about there and everything. And like I said, Connor Zilich and for Carson Quapple, I mean, those guys both out of the same shop. I think you're right. I think one of those guys be in the championship for next year. So yeah, a lot to play out there. But yeah, I mean, I think this race at least made Phoenix look interesting. I mean, yeah, it was kind of boring for the most part for Phoenix, but I feel like the Xfinity Series, at least with the package, at least makes Phoenix interesting a little bit more than it is in the Cup Series. And I definitely, you don't see Justin Allgaier coming back from that and making all the moves they did at the end of the race in the Cup Series. I mean, I think maybe Ryan Blaney, had the closest type of car to that type of handling car, but ultimately not able to pull it off there. But the same scenario on the Xfinity Series, maybe he is able to pull it off similar to what Allgaier did there. But yeah, Allgaier finally winning a championship here. So yeah, it's in the year for the Xfinity Series, and yeah, looking forward to more Xfinity racing in 25.
And a whole new broadcast crew, because we don't know who CW is going to hire to do that. We also don't know how many races they're actually going to do at the racetrack, since they were already using their new studio out in Charlotte to do. I don't know about Phoenix, but I know Martinsville they did from the Charlotte studio. So something to look at next year. Rick Allen was signing off like he's done with calling NASCAR races. So we'll see. But Allgaier getting the job done there. Great story, great to see. His mom and dad were there, his wife and kids. Very emotional. Big deal. Long time Xfinity driver, lifer in a sense, throwing back old school to the likes of the Tommy Houstons and Jack Ingrams and LD Ottingers and those days of the Busch Series when the drivers spent their career in the series. And he ran in the Cup Series. Allgaier, of course, he drove Larson's 5 car at the 600 and started really bad, and by the end of before the race basically was over, was running pretty damn good. So for the guy who basically was the best driver in the regular season, arguably, and maybe the best driver this year, to go and drive that car and drive it to a high level and then go out there and finally get that Xfinity title, big deal for Justin Allgaier. And then when it comes to those other guys, 2 of them are going to the Cup Series. Allmendinger, I think that's his last move. Whenever he decides to call it a day, that'll be it for his NASCAR career, at least. I don't think he's going to retire from driving sports cars. I figure Mike Shank will hire him whenever he's ready. And Custer is going to probably be in the Cup car for a while now. The 2 years of having the Xfinity experience, additionally, after the demotion, I think he knows what he needs more from a car. Of course, now you have the Gen 7 car, so may suit him better, maybe, than what the Gen 6 did. So we'll see what happens with that. All right, so Truck Series, they ran on Friday night, and it was uh, a race where even less drama than any either of the other races. Not that much movement amongst the top 10 for the majority of the race. The playoff four finished in the top five. But Ty Majeski won stage two and led 132 of the races, 150 laps, and ended up winning to become a Truck Series, Craftsman Truck Series champion. Corey Heim finished second. They started on the front row. Christian Eckes, who won this race last year, finished third. Nick Sanchez in his last Truck Series race, at least for maybe as a full-time competitor, finished fourth. Grant Enfinger finished fifth. You had Taylor Gray, Caden Honeycutt, Connor Mozak, defending series champion Ben Rhodes, Truck Series Rookie of the Year, Lane Riggs, rounding out the top 10. You had, where is, I'm trying to look through here. Trying to look, yeah, Matt Mills actually was back, finished a couple laps down. Connor Jones was in this race and finished 17th, returning after his suspension. Looking through some of these other drivers, yes, Walich got in a wreck with Ankrum, Frankie Muniz, who is basically a dart without feathers, so that'll be something to look forward to next year, him being a rolling caution. But, yeah, I mean, the big three of this season was Heim, Eckes, and then Majeski. Enfinger established himself in the playoffs here in the last few races as a factor, but the most quiet of them all really was Ty Majeski, and he saved his best for last. Ford really didn't have much of anything to show for their regular season, but in the playoffs, between Lane Riggs with front row and then Dorsport with Ty Majeski, they went out there and showed that they were ready when it counted most. And Ty Majeski can now add to all of his great short track victories and being a national champion. And he'll also be, now he is a NASCAR national champion by being Craftsman Truck Series champ after last week.
Yeah, and to add on to all of that, he's also was one of the highest ranked racers on iRacing there, with iRacing oval rating over on a iRating over 10,000, and at one point was the highest ranked oval racer for a long time on iRacing. And if you've seen his setup that he posted a few years ago, it's pretty hilarious. It's basically just a laptop that's been raised with a with a book underneath for height, and it's got a fan with a bowl of ice water for his cooling system there, and then you just got the old style Logitech G27 or even G25 pedal set and gear shifter there. So very very budget sim racer there, but he was getting it done on that, and shows you just how talented he was on that and everything, and all of that to say that maybe 2024 is the year of the sim racer. We've seen a lot of guys with sim racing backgrounds across all of motorsports get victories and significant wins this year. and this maybe one of the moments, the high moments for that. Of course, Verstappen, of course, in F1 has been a sim racing guy for years and probably the most successful sim racer of all time. But on the NASCAR side, we're starting to see that all come into to light here, and then a guy that's a very prominent figure on iRacing. I don't know how often he plays these days, but definitely considering his ranking overall, has played a lot throughout the years, and somebody that definitely you can say sim racing helped them in his background here to get to this point, and they were one of his partners in sponsoring him on short tracks, and I think even on some level the Xfinity series the first year he was there when he crashed a lot there. So they've been a good partner of him for many years and everything. But yeah, in this race alone, yeah, he dominated. Wasn't even close. I thought Corey Heim would give him more challenge there, but just was able to drive away. And Corey Heim never really had a chance to really get up there and challenge there. And then uh, Eckes also just wasn't there and never had an opportunity. Aimfinger, never had an opportunity really. So yeah, it was basically just Ty Majeski this whole race, and um, going out there and curb stomping the field uh, in the Truck Series. That's what a way to do it. And even though we had a lot of cautions in this one, this was the most eventful in terms of cautions in this race. He was able to go out and do all achieve all of that. So we had the big one on the back stretch, of course. Um, even then, going out to do all of that. So um, yeah, for Majeski, I mean, what did I say? Corey Heim should have had this championship, but no, it was always going to, I guess, in this scenario, always going to be Majeski. Eckes, of course, for what it's worth, in this series had 22 top tens, average finish of 5.4 compared to Majeski only 14 top tens, and average finish of 10.7. So still quite a lot for Eckes to have the kind of season that he had. He had one more win as well than Majeski to only come up and get third. Again, bringing back to our discussion from earlier with the point standings and the format that should be used. That's definitely one of the discrepancies that that needs to be addressed there, and ensuring that the best car in points should win the championship more than often than not. And definitely Eckes didn't do anything wrong other than not winning this race. So it is what it is, though. But yeah, year of the sim racer, I guess, this year in 2024, and that's very true for a guy like Majeski.
In a true hard nosed blue collar racer, you talked about the sim setup for him, Timmy Hill. It seems like for a lot of these guys, for all the big setups, that people have, and I mean, you think about like Jimmy Broadbent. Everyone, a big part of why he built a following was because he was doing it in his shed. So that was part of the appeal and the allure. So for Ty Majeski getting doing the sim side and then becoming and continuing to be one of the best racers we have in the country. So credit to him. We'll see what happens with him in 2025 to see what he can do to defend, since Corey Heim will be back next year for another year driving the Truck Series. So that will be interesting how that all goes. I mean, of course, Taylor Gray's leaving, Eckes is leaving the Truck Series. So those are two young guns that are leaving. And then, of course, Zilich isn't going to be in the trucks. Will Connor Mozak come in and kind of fill a void? Who is going to take over that McAnally 19 truck, that one of the best trucks in the field. Who gets the call for that one? A lot to go on in the Truck Series. Some big time rides to be filled heading into 2025. All right, so let's move on to NFL Week 10. I guess in for the Niners, they come back off of their bye, go and play in Tampa on a 1:00 game. Christian McCaffrey makes his season debut. He didn't look fully there, of course. Didn't seem 100%, but he had his moments. I'm not really sure about some of the play calling, but I say that almost every week. Ricky Pearsall getting that touchdown, his first career touchdown, huge to see that, to go from almost getting murked to being able to score a touchdown in a few months is pretty crazy. He's somebody that the way that the Niners, you consider the wide receiver situation right now. He's gonna play a big role. You got Jawan Jennings back. He's the third down safety valve. Debo, I don't know. It depends on the day. He seems to ebb and flow every single week. There's no real consistency with him. There are injuries going on. The defense, Devondre Campbell, somebody should have left him on. I don't know what the freeway is in Tampa. They should have just left him out there, and he should have had to hitchhike all the way back to Santa Clara. He is allergic to tackling. It's amazing to me how poor the guy is at tackling. He really sucks. And it's like, they were going after, I forget who Kermit the Frog and them were going after last year when Greenlaw got hurt, but this guy's no better, and they're paying him way more money. I think it's Winters or whatever, but he sucks. Magaboy won in one area, but he sucks in playing football. Like you have people that aren't even showing up, other than like Fred Warner. Diamador Lenore just got a 5-year extension, and has taken over essentially as our number one corner this year. Mooney Ward's been dealing with a lot of stuff, of course, the loss of his daughter. So he's had his mind preoccupied, I think, the whole year. I think now that, he'll come back, I would hope that because he's playing for her, he'll get back to that level that he was at the last year or two where he played at an elite level. And then the Niners will at least solidify one area with the secondary, because you only really have Fred Warner out there on defense playing, and Lenore playing up to that level. Otherwise, you got a bunch of scrum bums and people that really shouldn't be, that are wastes of paychecks out there. And they can't defend the run. They can't defend the pass. It sounds like Jim Mora, one of Jim Mora's rants from back in the day. And that's before you even take into the special teams. Jake Moody missing 3 field goals. Before he finally made the one to win the game. And Wisnowski's punting, which last year was good. This year he sucks again. And then their kick and punt returning just set it on fire. Like, just don't put anybody back there. The Niners have to be the team that just doesn't send anybody back there. If that means that the ball gets down at the 1, then you have to go 99 yards. It's like the whole Mike Singletary thing when he said, I'd rather go out with 10 men than have 11 that with one person that isn't committed. And then he pulled his pants down in the halftime locker room, basically saying that Vernon Davis was ass. I mean, that's the kind of, shit that their special teams is. They have the worst special teams, if not the worst, they're one of in the NFL every year. And it did in Kyle Shanahan. You're the head coach of this team. You know you suck at this. You didn't correct it. Make the corrections on the defense. They had this is the best draft they've had. If it wasn't for the draft that they had this past April, the Niners would probably be where the Cowgirls are. Because and that also that also brings up the point about Brock Purdy. We know that they're going to give Lamar Jackson the MVP. I'm benefiting from it in fantasy, but the guy who should finish second in the MVP is Brock Purdy, because outside of the Kansas City game, he showed out every week. He's keeping them in games. The defense isn't doing anything outside of two players. The offense has been hit or miss. Brandon Ayuk was a complete waste the whole entire year that for however many games he was out there. He had one good game. Debo's utterly inconsistent. The only thing he's consistent at is making up in Adams. He won't go, and you don't know if he's going to fucking be good Debo or bad Debo. We've had Jawan Jennings has been injured for a couple of games. Pearsall finally came back. So it's like GK has been good for a good amount of the years, so that's also positive. That's also kept us in. So really, there's been like maybe 6 players that have shown up all year. The fact that they're basically 500 this way, all right. So we'll take the win. Tampa Bay is better than their record shows. But it doesn't really count for much at the end of the day when you're trying to battle for playoff spots and put yourself in a position to compete. JJ McCarthy had another knee surgery. That ain't good. In terms of the recap of the rest of the weekend before get to Josh here. Last week, week 10 of the regular season, in a shootout on Thursday Night Football, the Ravens ended up beating the Bengals. Joe Burrow did everything in his power to try to win that game on his own, but their defense is an abomination, and it's a waste of talent. They're going to waste Joe Burrow's entire career. He's going to be like the Mike Trout of football. Gonna do everything, be great, and he'll just end up being a freaking batting practice for the NFC or AFC North. The Panthers beat the Giants in Germany. Where is it? What is it? I forget what stadium they played in. They're not showing that. Why are they not showing the? I'm trying to remember what the hell the stadium is, but whatever. They because they were in Germany last week, so they figured out a way to put two of the shittiest teams in the NFL in Germany for that game. Bryce Young actually doesn't look like a complete waste, so there's that. But Daniel Jones definitely is. The Bears completely didn't show up. The Patriots go out and win that. Bills in a close battle, but they basically made Shane Steichen switch right back to Anthony Richardson. Bills are 8-2 heading into a matchup against Kermit the Frog. The Vikings, Sam Darnold looked like the old Sam Darnold. I don't know how many interceptions he threw in that game. It seemed like every time they got to the red zone, he threw an interception. But Josh, you'll mention that here more in your part here to talk about the Jags. The Chiefs win on the last second field goal. They should have lost that fucking game. I'm getting sick and tired of the Chiefs getting away with murder every single week. The Saints end up beating the Falcons by a field goal. Steelers end up beating the Commanders in Landover. Russell Wilson having a resurgence. And but it was a competitive game, and it's crazy to think, but it may not be as far-fetched to think that those two could be in a position to possibly meet in New Orleans in February if things land a certain way. So there was a tight matchup there. Chargers beat up on the Titans. Cardinals destroy the Jets. Cardinals, I guess, are way better than I thought they were. The Eagles go and destroy the Cowgirls in Dallas, and Dakota's going to get hamstring surgery and be out for the year. So good luck. So for Trey Lance, good luck, bud. If you had happy feet behind the offensive line in San Francisco, the Dallas offensive line's worse, and you have no running game. So, good luck, bro. And then, yeah, the Texans-Lions game was super close, but a lot of turnovers there. Lions get the win, get to 8-1. Dolphins go and get a big win over the Rams in LA to go and keep themselves somewhat relevant. Yeah, Josh, I'll hand it over to you. It is when they kept on going into the red zone, I think Sam Darnold turned into the old Sam Darnold. He kept on trying to force the ball to Justin Jefferson. Of course, I get it, but you guys had perfectly good defense there, basically saying, well, if you're going to beat us, you're going to throw it to any number of other people. You're just not going to throw it to him. And for whatever reason, Sam Darnold thinks he's Brett Favre or something that day, and he thought he was going to go and force balls. He looked more like a tax evader and a guy who steals money from a state that already steals money from the rest of the country. But I don't know what else happened that somehow or another that after all those turnovers, Minnesota escaped with a victory.
Well, Minnesota escaped with a victory there because Mac Jones turned it over 3 times in the last 6 minutes of the games. Fumble, interception, and yeah, Sam Darnold. The first 2 times he played in Everbank Field with the against the Jaguars, played rookie season, got blown out. Then the year after, was seeing ghosts and threw picks in that one, and then now as a member of the Vikings, going out and throwing picks. So yeah, reverting to old Sam Darnold. But yeah, Trevor Lawrence out with the injury, maybe out for the rest of the year here with AC sprain, which we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, the defense actually played good for once, and then of course no offense. Mac Jones might actually be unplayable as a backup quarterback in the NFL because he just doesn't have any talent. But they didn't do anything after getting a touchdown in the first quarter, and then it's just a matter of time, I guess. Which for the longest time, I was like, well, maybe it'll just be one of those low scoring games, and we'll somehow win like 7-3, which I like that, but didn't happen there, and had no offense the rest of the game. Which Doug Peterson, they asked him after the game, like, what was like the idea of that play where Mac Jones kind of got hammered, but as he was hammered, he threw it and it went deep and got picked there. And he was like, well, I'm not going to even bother explaining it to you because you won't get it. And that's, I mean, come on, man. Like, why be rude to reporters like that? And he's been rude to reporters like that this whole year. He's basically jabbed Trevor Lawrence every chance he's gotten in the press conference so far this year. And I mean, even so, as far as when usually when you have a player that's injured, like, oh, shoulder injury, and then it was so specific, they're like, oh, his left shoulder. And other players that had shoulder injury on there is just like, oh, shoulder injury. And Doug Peterson wanted to specifically say that it was the left shoulder, the non-throwing shoulder of Trevor Lawrence that was injured, and because of sprain last week, which somehow played through, but then this week is like, I'm not feeling it, and may not come back, which apparently, according to Peterson, he's like, oh, well, it hurts, but he can play through it if he wants to, basically. And basically, calling Trevor soft or whatever. And I mean, I think he's just like, yeah, we're 2-7 or 2-8 now. Maybe should get surgery and get it fixed. And then, avoid playing the rest of the year under this, lost season with a toxic head coach there. So I'm all for that. Yeah. And we'll see how many people are left at the end of the year. And I mean, who are even go to these games at the end of the year. We'll see. But I may actually bet on the Detroit Lions to win this game. They're 13-point favorites going into week 11 here in the NFL. So I may actually open the Hard Rock app and go and take the Lions just straight up, or try to take some money on the spread, which I normally do. If I bet on football, I usually just take money line, but I might just like take a parlay, maybe take a parlay on Mac Jones to have at least one turnover, if that's even possible. Take the under on Brian Thomas Jr., even though I just got his jersey. So we may just go like on a full like Jags Lions parlay here, and bet heavily against the Jags. We'll see. Which very unlike to do, but let's profit at least from them being bad. So we'll see how that goes there. But fantasy wise, my other league actually won pretty well in there. Beyond Robinson, of course, won with him getting 2 touchdowns. Sam Laporta actually played pretty decently in the Sunday night game match. Let's see what else happened. I got to go back and look at that again. But week 10, Kyler Murray had a good game with rushing touchdowns and throwing touchdown. Kareem Hunt had a good game. Marvin Harrison actually had a good game. The Texans defense had a good game with 5 interceptions there. Tony Pollard had a good game as well. So yeah, that's there in that other league. Our league didn't do as well. So got to get back in the win column because the playoffs are coming up here shortly. So got to get back in the win column there. Which, didn't have a really good game. 50-point loss or almost 50-point loss there, which got to figure out a guy other than DJ Moore if the Bears aren't going to do anything. Thought Tank, of course, would do something, but he didn't do anything because he got hurt with ankle injury. Derwin James didn't have a good game fantasy-wise there, so I might need to get a new defense. Sam Hubbard didn't do anything, which, the surprisingly, I mean, I guess because the Ravens game ended up being a shootout, so yeah, there was no defense in the second half there for the Bengals, but at least I won in the other league. This one gonna have to get a little bit better, and so this season, not going great for the real life Jaguars, but I don't know. We'll see when do they decide to fire Doug Peterson, if they do it in the bye week, or doing it in the off season or whatever. Maybe just let it ride out so we can just put more negative press conferences on tape, for him to be dragged in the press or in social media. So we'll see how it goes, but yeah, not a good look right now.
Yeah, right now the Jags are battling the Giants in the cellar, unfortunately. One of 3 teams or 4 teams with 2 wins, or 5 teams, sorry. With 2 wins. Both the Giants and Jags have 8 losses. Right now the teams with 3 wins, like, good God, man.
Yeah.
The AFC, it's very top heavy in the AFC. You have, after you get past the Chiefs, Bills, Steelers, and Ravens, it starts to weaken a lot. But you have the Texans. Somebody has to win the AFC South. The Chargers. 3 teams from the AFC West are making it as of now. Second place in the AFC South is 2 games behind with the Colts, and now they're, of course, Anthony Richardson's coming back. Bengals are 4-6, so they're fucked. The whole entire AFC East is a cesspool outside of the Bills. Browns, they cratered their own season. The Raiders they're the Raiders. In terms of the NFC, Lions, of course, with their comeback victory, 8-1, a game ahead of the Eagles, 2.5 games ahead of both the Falcons and the Cardinals. They're only a game ahead of the Vikings right now. Their first wild card is the Vikings. Commanders drop out of the division lead and fall from the 2 to the 6. Packers, last wild card right now at 6-3. 49ers are at 5-4, and they'll be playing the Seahawks on Sunday. Bears will be playing the Packers. So division rival games. Rams will be at home versus the Patriots, so that's a winnable game. Buccaneers are on the bye. Houston will be hosting the Cowgirls on Monday Night Football. Cleveland and the Saints. Carolina's on their bye, along with the Giants, so we're spared both of those teams. 49ers, they need to do some work if they want to get back into the playoff mix. It'd be a novel concept if they could actually beat the fucking Cardinals. That would be nice. In terms of my fantasy season, last week I was playing against, in the one league I'm in, I was playing against a team that basically isn't even maintained. So that was a default victory. Even in a default victory situation, I still had the 3rd most points. That's a team I didn't even get to draft, so it was auto-drafted for me, and the vast majority of this team I got through auto-draft, so thanks, Yahoo. If I win this league, which I should have won it last year, but If I do win this league this year, I can thank Yahoo for it. Brock Purdy, 350 yards, 2 touchdowns. Kareem Hunt did some work there. Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry. My wide receivers are pretty shitty. Bates for Detroit with those 2 long field goals got me the points I needed, and then the Chargers defense has been solid most of the season. So move forward to my other teams here in my league. Want to go and switch over. It won't allow me. It's a pain in the ass, this stupid Yahoo. Why does it make it this dumb freaking... it's so annoying. I have to put in the password in for one of my emails, and it says, "Oh, do a passkey." And I'm like, I don't have a goddamn passkey. So there's that there. Alrighty. So moving to that. Holy crap. Victor Wembanyama got 50 to lead the Spurs to victory, and then Giannis scored 59. Okay, there you go. Then that is crazy. They'll be talking about that tomorrow on Inside the NBA. In my league, I lead at by a game, 8-2. I'm a game ahead of Luke. Steve is 2 games back right now. The battle for the last 3 spots. 3 teams are 5-5. Josh is right outside there, a game behind that with Manny, and then Vic and Jeff are only 2 games out. So all to play for right now. Nobody really pulling away, so to speak. I mean, I have a 3-game lead over what would be the current cutoff, but still a lot of season left. A lot to go here. I mean, last week I was able to get Joe in a tight matchup. Jeff actually got a win over Vic, and Josh was against Steve. I mean, Steve's just tough. Luke had second high points. Wilson had high points for the week. Last week, I have to go and put that in. And Joe had actually had nearly 250 in week 9. Who did he have? He had Darnold. Alvin Kamara had 40, okay. Because he had the bonus because of the 150 yards. Kermit, 291, 3 touchdowns. Oh, Kyle Hamilton at 23 points. That'll do it. Devontae, like all these guys were double digits. He had Will Anderson, and he put up a donut, and he still had 249 points almost. So, and that unfortunately took place against you, so I'm sorry. But I will say Foye Oluwakan is that guy, so I at least you have him. And you have Josh Hines Allen when he decides to show up, and there are people there. You just need to get rid of your coach and your GM and start over. Maybe call Tom Coughlin back from the dead. Who knows? He put a winner together down there. But I don't know if the Cons want to go old school like that. And then in the league I won last year, I'm in 4th place at the moment. 6-4, so I'm 2 games out of the lead, 1 game out of second. So there's very active. The league is very close, to be fair. So only a game up on the cutoff. So very tight, tough. We're gonna have to play this thing out. I'm playing against. It's basically it's a playoff preview of sorts, playing against a team that I've played against many years. Because we've been in the league together for many years, so tough matchup there. In our sleeper league, me and Vic have the lead in that league as well. So gotta take it when the iron's hot. It's been rough the last few years in fantasy, so I'll take the positives for now, but still plenty of season to go. Need to finish the job. There's another 6-7 weeks to go, so need to finish the deal. It's great to lead at this point of the year, but doesn't count for jack shit. Kyle Larson proved that, and Tyler Reddick. We'll move forward now into the roundup. MotoGP, Moto2 end their season at Barcelona. As of course the Valencia, the massive issues there with the storms and the destruction, the Solidarity Grand Prix of Barcelona. Jorge Martin essentially is in control. He goes and stays upright. As long as he stays upright for the sprint and the race, it's going to be basically impossible for Pecco Bagnaia to become a 3-time consecutive world champion. Bagnaia dumped his bike in the sprint on Saturday at Malaysia, and even with that, he wasn't able to go out and do what was necessary in the race. And even with the 20, so right now it's a 24-point lead. Martin needs to have, what is it? He needs to have 20. He needs to have a 26-point lead at the end of the sprint to become the world champion and take that number 1 plate over to Aprilia next year. And then Bagnaia is going to go and have Marc Marquez as his teammate next year, so it'll be interesting with that. And then in Moto2, the standings over there, Ayagura is the champion. Aaron Canet will finish second. The most interesting battle is for third. There's 10 points separating Sergio Garcia in third, Aldeguer, Gonzalez, and Lopez. So, and then if you add Celestino Vietti, who won the last race, he's 16 points out. So, close battle there. Joe Roberts is 9th in points. So after more injuries this year, so falling back, he had been doing pretty decent, but getting hurt there, unfortunately, has kept him off the bike yet again. In Supercars, of course, Will Brown is the champion, taking over SVG's ride. Went out there, and then in terms of the team's results, Red Bull, Ampol trying to win the team's title again. Will Brown the champion over his teammate Brock Feeney, Chaz Mostert, Cam Waters, Matt Payne. We'll round out your top 5. Matt Payne is only 22 points ahead of James Golding for 5th, so that'll be something to look at. Thomas Randall's also in that mix as well. Nick Percat, Will Davison, Andreon Gardner, Anton De Pasquale. And then, in the teams, Red Bull, Ampel Racing, over, they got that, so that doesn't matter. I'm not going to bother with that. Racing in Adelaide to finish the 2024 championship. Supercars, Josh mentioned, they're going to go to a somewhat of a playoff format, elimination style deal to make it a little more interesting. We'll see how interesting that really is if the parity isn't adjusted for the championship. And then, last but not least, the NHRA World Finals at Pomona. Austin Prock will get to officially hold the Funny Car Championship, and after taking over Robert Height's car, he's gone out there and done what is necessary, and he will become a Funny Car champion. Gage Herrera, outside of Matt Smith having an epic weekend, Gage Herrera will repeat as a Pro Stock Motorcycle champion. Don't know what that is on the boom, on the freaking mic cover there, but Richard Gadsden only 3 points out of Hector Rana Jr., so that'll be a battle to look at. There's some close battles behind that. Chase Van Zandt, Angie Smith, et cetera, et cetera. John Hall, Gianna Varisto. So there's that. In Pro Stock Car, the battle is between Aaron Stanfield, Dallas Glenn. Of course, Greg Anderson's also in that, 56 points. So 32 points between Stanfield and Dallas Glenn. So, and Anderson's minus 56. So 2 KB Titan cars versus the 1 Elite Motorsports car. Enders and Coughlin, both, of course, Elite cars, are 4th and 5th, so they'll be helping Aaron Stanfield in whatever way they can. That's where it's going to get fun because of the rivalry those two teams have, and then the championship battle being in there as well. Proc beating, of course, the John Force car, because it's not John Force driving right now, it's Jack Beckman. So for Proc to go out there, become a Funny Car champion with his dad and his brother tuning on the car, it's a pretty big deal. Then in Top Fuel, Justin Ashley, 44 points ahead of Antron Brown, 45 points ahead of Sean Langdon, 85 Coletta Torrance, 93 on Clay Milliken. So there's the math is there for all those guys, but it's really Ashley, Brown, and Langdon. Brown, of course, 3-time champion, or not how many championships he has. Langdon has won the Top Fuel title before. Ashley trying to go for his first title. Tony Stewart tied with Sean Reed for 10th in points, or 9th in points, but also on Baby Watch. Leah's going to give birth any day now, so we'll see if she can hold out long enough for Tony to finish out the season, or if he gets called to go out and, as he says, hang out in the waiting room with a cooler and beers while they put the baby through the car wash thing, and then once that's over, he'll go and come in and see his new baby son. But we'll see if he actually is in the delivery room when that takes place. All right. So, in Formula One news, Niels Wittich, the F1 race director for the last couple of years, gets knocked out. Yeah. So I mean, it seems like I mean, it's yet another FIA move. I mean, Ben Suliam has got so many problems going on, not just brought on by himself because he's a hack, but, like the way they're not just calling it races, but the penalties and things like that. So there's rumors whether Wittich left on his own or if they fired him. So that's not great leading into Vegas. You have Greg Maffei will be leaving as the CEO of Liberty Media. So that's interesting. So that's a big move there. So that's another big piece of the puzzle. I mean, it's interesting that he's leaving Formula One and leaving Liberty Media as Andretti is trying to get into Formula One. You have Wittich leaving. There's so many moving parts here. The possibility of Andretti trying to get in after, the teams basically said they didn't want him in because they didn't want to split the money pie with one other team, even though they were qualified. So I mean, those two. You have driver cooling kits approved for 2025. So there's that. When there's F3 racers producer, Martinez, Nation end of the years. Yeah, Alpine will use Mercedes power units in 2026. Become a customer team, basically taking over what Aston Martin had, because now after 2025, Aston Martin will be the Honda factory team. So Mercedes will continue to have 3 customers, and they'll still supply 4 teams. So I would look at Ferrari if Andretti were to come in to Formula One. I guess they would be the power unit provider for them. So they'd be providing the power units for both American efforts, if that was the case, because now Alpine's out of play. And then Red Bull, of course, has their own power unit that they're badging a Ford, but it's their own powertrain. So cleared that, which is whatever. Ferrari going in. Lewis will be driving his first time driving for Ferrari will be in an old car, so he's allowed to actually drive. And then, I mean, other stuff with Vegas and whatever, which we'll get into more next week. But, Josh, you had any comments on that? And then afterwards, obviously, you can get into your sim segment. Let us know what's going on in iRacing and gaming.
Yeah, obviously there's a lot to get into on the iRacing side. A lot of big news coming out in sim racing here. The development update for the end of the year, going into next year, the season 1 2025 cars that they're releasing. They're releasing the Acura NSX GT3, working with HRC and Racers Edge Motorsports to scan the GT3 NSX there. So that's pretty interesting. So a lot of road content as well. Supercars next year, the Gen 3 and Gen 3 Ford, Mustang, and Camaro be out next year. BMW M2 for racing at the rookie level. They're racing, and then the big one here for new cars, the Ferrari 499 prototype or P. So that will be in the endurance series, in the GTP class, and they'll have a prototype challenge series there. So this is a very road heavy update here coming up, and oval racing people look forward to more stuff later in the year. New tracks that they're building, and releasing the Thruxton circuit, expanding UK track, which BTCC there race there a bunch. So they've done a really good job scanning the track. They got a picture here of the curb at one of their turns. Very accurate in their rendering here on iRacing. So compared to real life, so that looks like they will have a lot of detail there in that. And there's another update here with the dirt track, Hussett Speedway in South Dakota, and they've being featured in the iRacing sim and also in World of Outlaws Dirt Racing 24 as DLC there. And then on the oval side, paved oval side, New Hampshire's getting a refresh, and then Las Vegas is also being updated as well. So a couple of tracks in there also marking towards upgrading all the NASCAR tracks and getting them refreshes to for all the tracks there, because there's a lot of tracks on iRacing NASCAR wise that that they haven't updated in a while, and that the graphics is a little bit out of date somewhat, and bring it up to date with what they have in 2024 or 2025 now. New features that they're having on iRacing, they're improving the dynamic track elements with a debris refresh, so they'll be able to render track and render dynamic gravel and mud, and set I guess they can set areas of the track to have a lot of debris, which is a factor in real life that they don't currently have. Let me say, for example, shoulder of the road along Mulsanne Strait at Le Mans is littered with debris in real life, and racers avoid it. In iRacing, it's pristine and has led to unrealistic racing lines. And I guess this debris refresh will solve that problem. So that should make that interesting. AI improvements as well. Tire model enhancements here for the GTP class and LMP2, and they're working to add that to NASCAR Cup and the other oval cars. The benefits include better dynamic response, feeling like real life tires, more like real life tires. And when you first load them, they respond quickly. As you sustain loads, they soften up. You can lean on them. They feel much more in sync with your driving inputs. Previous tires, you might have felt like you were waiting for the tires to respond. This is much better now. Secondary benefits, new degradation mechanism, and I guess improving tire wear. They're improving the compounds that they are running in the car and tire construction. So yeah, a lot of input there. So that's definitely a lot. Got a graphics engine enhancements, and they're trying to improve the rendering to make it more realistic than it is currently. They have, I guess, an example of in IndyCar at Long Beach Street Circuit here, in the left side, a little bit stale and static on the right side. You can see a better reflection of the color in the IndyCar here, orange, and the sky, I guess the atmosphere looks a little bit more photo-like. So yeah, getting improvements there. And then also, I think a big one here on the road car side, they said that they had hoped to have the bump start feature in GTP cars last year, but they hadn't had that in yet. And now they finally implemented that in iRacing. And with season 1, the bump starts have been added to the entire GTP fleet, and support will debut for season 1. So, of course, you've seen the video of, or any video clip of the Cadillac GTP taking off from the pits. Great sound there. You have the electric battery kicking it off, and then all of a sudden that bump start of the V8 engine there kicking in. What a great noise! So that's a part of it as well. Feature development that they're looking into, putting in a new UI for the sim, improving the graphics layout in the menus and all that stuff, and looking a little bit more realistic, or not realistic, but more feedback, more information on the UI than what they currently have. And to me, it looks like they have a lot of elements of third-party apps that have made their own UI, and now here they are implementing a lot of those third-party elements to make the improvements to their own UI here. So that's a good feature there, and yeah, they've a lot of things that definitely be able to add there, and I guess more rendering here, more graphics improvements here with the lighting system, a little bit more physics development here, there. So got that, and then a little bit more feature content that they may have later on in the year, next year. The Gen 4 stock car, they've shown hints that they were scanning the engine from one of Dale Jr.'s cars from the Super Speedway era that he ran. And then they've also scanned Jeff Gordon's 2005 car that he won at in Talladega with Star Wars on the hood. One of the most dominant performances by a super speedway car ever, with Jeff Gordon leading most of that race and winning pretty handedly at Talladega that year in May 2005. They're scanning that. Tracks, they're scanning, I guess they're implementing the Miami International Autodrome, which the F1 Miami Grand Prix is at, and they're showing the early rendering prototypes of that, so look out for that next year. And they're also working on Portland International Raceway there, so good track, and a football parking lot that they're putting into the game. And they are also, I guess, implementing Adelaide from Supercars there, so they're getting ready to make the scan and all the photography references next week there for Supercars. So yeah, obviously a lot here in iRacing for 2025, but huge update there. So definitely looking forward to seeing some of that. Looking forward to getting into some of these cars, trying out that, and looking out for some of these new content that we'll have next year. So definitely iRacing making improvements, and they're definitely putting back some of the money that all their customer fan base definitely have been paying them the last couple of years, and all their subscriptions and content. So it's great to see that. So yeah, of course, I guess that's the end of that. Of course, whenever I do stream iRacing, of course, when I'm on at UC2 on Twitch, and then Twitter at JP Huffine, maybe we'll post the results of any gambling I decide to do against the Jaguars. We'll see if I decide to do that. I already started looking at it and come up with a parlay there, I guess. And then, of course, the show here on YouTube, and we'll have this uploaded hopefully at the end of the week, and have this on there for people to look at. So, Christian Podcast on YouTube there. So, yeah, of course, glad to be back for another week. Glad to have another NASCAR season under the belt here. And yeah, looking forward to next year, and hopefully we see more exciting racing. Certainly exciting enough or interesting enough for us to talk about it on here, which we'll talk about it regardless. But yeah, of course, glad to be able to break it all down and talk about it.
Sorry, looking at Alexa Landestoy on Instagram. But in terms of, for me, oh wow, look at that Brooks. Brooks dancing around. Okay, he's happy for now. In terms of, for me on socials, you can find me on Instagram, I guess Threads, but I went off of that. PGMGSP28. You can find me on Twitter for now. In terms of, thank you. Yeah, you can find me at PGMatthew28 there. On Twitter, and then yeah, so oh wow, Denny Hamlin came out and shit on Larry McReynolds about the championship, bringing up Matt Crafton not even winning a race. So that one is because he's been outspoken about the lawsuit. So there's that. You can find me on the new Blue Sky app. You can find me there at PGMGSP28. If my banner is Lewis celebrating for the British Grand Prix. I have a new picture up there. So there's that. You can find us at GripStripPod on Twitter. Probably move that also over here. And yeah, of course, wouldn't want to do it to anyone else. Always great to talk and chop it up in regards to racing and sports. Of course, another year almost done in racing. We only have basically Formula One left after this weekend. Just crazy. So 5 seasons in, and we'll see how long this can go. But always great for us to go and hang out and do this. And thank you to the listeners who do listen to us and subscribe. We will be back next week for episode 246, talking about all things motorsports, football, and whatever else comes up. We'll talk about it here on the Rip Strip Podcast. So for Josh, I'm Phil, and thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.